Hey, welcome to my new spin-off series, Rick's Retro Reviews, where we'll be talking about classic movies, what makes them great, and why they've had such an enduring impression over the years, eventually becoming cult classics. With this being the tail end of summer, I can think of no better movie to kick off this new series than a personal favorite of mine that made audience members around the world think twice about getting into the water, Jaws. Jaws is hands down one of the best movies of all time. Jaws is credited with being the first ever summer blockbuster, coining the term as people would line up around the block of theaters nationwide just to see it, literally breaking the block. It was also the first movie to break $100 million at the box office, which by today's standards would be nearly $500 million. And it has one of the most iconic musical scores ever written. So much so that people born decades later who've never even seen the movie know the Jaws music. Which, by the way, was composed by musical genius John Williams, who went on to do the musical scores for movies like Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, and Harry Potter, just to name a few. Despite all of its jawsomeness, Jaws is often underappreciated or overlooked by younger moviegoers, probably because they're mistaking it for one of its disappointing sequels or countless hokey ripoffs. But the original Jaws is a maritime masterpiece, based off a best-selling novel of the same name and directed by none other than legendary director Steven Spielberg, which is evidenced by his marvelous cinematography throughout the film. Jaws is full of now famous camera work, ranging from the vertigo shot of Chief Brody at the beach, to the orca leaving port, metaphorically steering right into the jaws of death, to the numerous underwater shots of Jaws stalking his would-be victims from below. Another reason Jaws is often dismissed by youngsters is because, with this being the 70s, there was no CGI. So, they had several mechanical sharks made to be used during the movie, which by today's standards are not very realistic looking. And, in addition to the fake sharks looking pretty fake, the robot circuits were fried by the salt water during filming, causing them to malfunction or not work at all much of the time. This forced rookie director Steven Spielberg to formulate an alternative method of shooting that didn't require much use of the mechanical sharks. But how are you going to make a monster movie with little or no monster? Spielberg's solution was to shoot much of the film from the point of view of the shark. Now, bear in mind, nobody had ever shot a movie like that before, and it was certainly before the term POV took on a whole new meaning. But this unique perspective is what makes the movie so great. You don't get to see it. You don't know what's lurking in the dark waters below you. And there is absolutely nothing more frightening than that which you cannot see, which in this case is a giant carnivorous shark you don't even know is there until it takes a bite out of you. Which brings me to the premise, a classic tale of man versus beast. We all have that primal fear of being eaten alive ingrained in our DNA. You may not think about it or even realize it's there, but it is a universal fear shared by everyone. It's kind of like when you walk into a room and suddenly you hear a dog growl that you didn't even know was in there, and you suddenly feel that cold twinge down your spine. That's your innate fear kicking in. Add being in water and half drowning during the process. It's literally my worst nightmare. And Jaws really capitalizes on this subconscious dread we all have, bringing it to the forefront of your mind and exploiting it to the extent that when you finally do see the shark, this fear you have in your mind obscures the image. And you don't see a fake-looking robot. You see a giant great white shark trying to devour you. In addition to your suspension of disbelief brought on by this primal fear, you get so fixated on the idea of man conquering beast that by the time you see it, you don't even care about the appearance of the shark. Because at this point, there's been so much buildup that it isn't about what the shark looks like, it's about beating the shark. It's like when you play the claw machine. You'll drop $20 just to win some 50-cent piece of crap that you're just going to throw away next week. But it's not about the money, it's about winning. And in this movie, it's not about the appearance of the shark, it's about beating it. You want the good guys to win. You want justice for the victims. You want this nightmare to end. Plus, you get so invested in the characters and how everything plays out. You've got Chief Brody. He's a good guy, just trying to do the right thing. But he allows himself to get bamboozled by the mayor and his cronies after that first girl gets killed at the beginning. He leaves the beaches open, and as a result, Jaws snatches that little boy off the raft right in front of his eyes. And it is totally his fault. He knows it, the mother knows it, and she even calls him out in front of everyone with a famous slap. Now at this point, the movie is no longer just about fear or man versus beast. It is about redemption. It's not enough that man conquers beast. We want this man to do it. So, Brody teams up with shark expert Matt Hooper and grizzled old sea captain Quint, and the three set out on an expedition of a lifetime to hunt down this monster once and for all. But once they're out to sea, Hooper and Brody realize they may have bitten off more than they can chew. First, Brody almost gets eaten off the back of the damn boat when Jaws pops up for some air while Brody's chumming the water. The look on his face says it all, but then he backs up and improvises one of the most famous lines in cinematic history.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Then, as if having a giant man-eater stalking them weren't bad enough, Brody and Hooper figure out that Quint is a total nutcase, having been traumatized by his time on the USS Indianapolis, a real naval ship which sank in 1945, and hundreds of American sailors were eaten alive by countless sharks over several days. So now we understand why this guy's a little off and why he has this personal vendetta against sharks. It's very akin to Moby Dick, with Quint like Ahab, who is hell-bent on catching the white whale, or in this case, white shark. But his vengeful obsession ends up being his own undoing, when just like the biblical story of Jonah and the white whale, Quint winds up in the belly of the beast. Despite Hooper's expertise and Quint's lifetime of oceanic experience, all of their shark hunting efforts are in vain, as Jaws literally swims circles around them, taunting and terrorizing them with his unprecedented strength and intelligence. Things really fall apart when Quint finally snaps and first smashes the radio to ensure no one interferes with his victory over this monster, and then maroons them in his sinking vessel when he blows out the engine while trying to tow in the shark. Which brings me to the epic conclusion of this movie. Desperate times calling for desperate measures, Hooper goes underwater in the cage in a last-ditch effort to poison the shark. No surprise, Jaws tears the cage to pieces and Hooper is presumed dead. In the book, Hooper does die in the water, and Quint actually kills Jaws with a harpoon, but then is drugged underwater and drowns when his foot is caught in the harpoon line. Just how Ahab dies in Moby Dick. Now, while that ending may have sufficed in writing, it did not work for Steven Spielberg. Instead, Quint dies in a horrific fashion when Jaws breaches the water and decides to get a little sun on the rear deck of the Orca. This leaves only Brody and the shark, back down to man versus beast. As the Orca sinks, Brody climbs up into the crow's nest and begins shooting at Jaws in one final effort to kill him by rupturing a compressed air tank that's in his mouth. This tactic was foreshadowed a bit earlier and now is Brody's last chance for redemption and to save his own life. After a few near misses and the music really amps you up, Brody takes that fateful shot and Jaws explodes, sending blood and shark guts everywhere. And as an audience member, relief just washes over you as the shark is finally dead and Brody now has his redemption. At this point, Hooper resurfaces and the two begin an optimistic swim towards shore. And if you stick around through the unbelievably short credits, you'll see that these two actually do reach the shore. What a ride. I'm exhausted just talking about it. From playing off your fears to its amazing cinematography, iconic musical score, and superior storyline and character development, no wonder that 44 years later, this movie is still so highly regarded by movie fans worldwide. It has 3 sequels made after it, countless hokey ripoffs, its own ride at Universal Studios, and millions of dollars in endless merchandise, from things like this t-shirt to wine. How many movies do you know that have their own bottle of wine named after them? Although, it really should have been red wine. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my retro review, please like and subscribe, and comment below on what you think of Jaws and my review. And let me know what other classic movies you'd like to see me talk about in future retro reviews. And tune in next weekend and every weekend for new reviews on movies and TV shows. Same Rick time, same Rick channel. Thanks for watching Movie Real Rick.